That helps. There we go. This is Andrew at PhysioWorks. It's good to be here this morning or this afternoon, and I'm pleased that some of you are joining me. Hopefully more people will join as you come along. Give it a plus, a thumbs up, and that'll help more people to know that we're doing this today. And we're going to talk a little bit about ankle sprains. And I just published a blog a couple of days ago that goes into a lot more detail about, the generals of what to do, when to do it, etc., etc. The goal today basically is to try and give you a little bit more information, an idea of some of the practical things of what we do as physical therapists with patients who come to us with ankle sprains. Why is this important? A couple of stats I'll throw out there. I don't remember these off the top of my head, but 46% of patients with sprains still experience pain 1 to 4 years later. 34% of patients experience recurrent sprains. That means having one sprain can increase your likelihood of suffering another one. And up to 55% of patients report feeling instability of the ankle. So that's obviously a big deal. So, this is from my point of view. I played a lot of soccer growing up, ran cross country, and unfortunately had a lot of ankle sprains. Now, this is a few years ago now. We didn't really know as much as we did today. And I've subsequently experienced more sprains since, and I think there are things that I could have done probably differently that would have helped. I've tried to do things in my adult life and to try and help that, and with varying success. But I kind of wish that I'd had the chance and the knowledge to do some of the things I know now back then. So you've probably heard the term RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation. While this is not a bad thing, the rest component often gets emphasized too much and people stay off with the foot, they baby things too much, and either they slow their recovery down or they never really generate the tolerance to running or load as they need to have. So we're kind of moving away a little bit from that, and that people tried the idea of adding protection to it. Again, not a bad thing. Taping, bracing can be very helpful for someone who is struggling with an ankle sprain, and helps to get them back safely. So that's not a bad thing. But the idea that we really like is what we call police. So we're going from an acronym to an acronym. Protection, optimal loading, ice, compression, and elevation. So they're the different components now. So we've still got protection like we have when we use when we use price. So protection is still important. Like I said, bracing, taping, they can be very beneficial. Then we've also got optimal loading. Now that's the real key difference between RICE and price, the idea of rest versus optimal loading. So optimal loading basically means, and what does loading mean? Let's just step back a second. Loading means that we're putting some load through the tissue that has been injured. So in the case of an ankle sprain, we're talking the lateral ankle ligaments. If we rest them too much, we never generate any capacity for them as they heal to actually deal with the load we want to put through them in whatever sport we want to do. So when we talk about optimal loading, we mean that we want to encourage those ligaments to actually be tolerant to load again. So that means that we actually want to move into places where there is stress on them. So in the case of an ankle sprain, rolling your ankle, we actually want to take our ankle gradually towards that place. So that's kind of a little bit more of what we're going to talk about today. If we actually optimally load things, we're going to encourage the ligaments to heal in a way where they're going to deal better with the stresses. So what I think we'll do, I'm going to switch to another camera. I'm going to show you some of the different options that we kind of use as a physical therapist. So I'm going to switch to this camera here. Let me just remove that. There we go. I'm going to step out here and hopefully you can see me and hear me okay. Give me a thumbs up if you can. And we've got different tools within the therapy clinic. So if I sprain my ankle, obviously I'm not going to be going straight out and using this Bosu over here. That's not the first thing that I'm going to be doing. Because obviously there's a good chance I'm not doing protection. I'm going to twist my ankle, re-sprain the ligaments, maybe do more damage. But so at first it may be that we're doing simple ankle pumping and ankle circle exercises to regain range of motion. That is our optimal loading perhaps at the beginning, to actually put some stress through the ligament, starting to normalise our walking pattern again. But once our normal walking is coming back, then we want to start to think about what can we do to start to challenge our balance senses. What can we do to start to put stresses back through those ligaments and help ourselves to help those ligaments to heal in a good functional way. So I'm going to step out here for a second. So at first, we might want to start working on standing on one leg. Very simple, but really not putting my ankle into any stressful position. I might start to do that with my eyes closed. I might start to do that while catching a ball or having a conversation. But again, still pretty minimal. My foot's staying in contact with the ground and it's not moving too much. So in the therapy clinic, we have different tools we might use. So we might use an unstable surface. So a foam pad's an example. Again, not tons of movement, but depending on how much damage there is, it can be useful. We might use a little wobble board. So if I try and stand on this wobble board, I can try and balance here while talking to you. I can try and balance here while catching a ball, say I'm playing a ball sport. If I'm a soccer player, I could try balancing on one leg and actually kicking the ball. We can take that a step further. We can go to the Bosu. So I could stand on the Bosu and I could do the same things. I could stand there, try and catch a ball, stand there, kick a ball. Now, there's a lot of questions right now within that orthopaedic science and sports medicine. What benefit is there to some of these things? Because they don't really recreate the situations people are going to find themselves out running a trail or on the field. They really recreate more extreme situations. So they can have some benefit perhaps, but I think there are other things that we typically want to do with our clients. So once someone can walk and they can do things where there's a little bit of shifting going on, we also probably want to take into account combining balance and plyometrics. And we've seen actually within the research that if we combine balance and plyometrics, which are jumping type exercises, that there are actually improvements in people's performance as well. Typically when we see improvements in performance, that's often improvement in efficiency. Often that seems to come with less injury risk. Not guaranteed, but it does seem to happen. So if I go back over here, so at first, my jumping, my plyometric might be a simple stand on one leg and jump to the side, and jump to the side, and try and do it nice and softly. Then I might start to try and do bigger jumps. I might then start to have more direction changes. So I might go from here to here, from here to here. At first I might put my foot down, but then I might start to try and stick the landing more from here to here, to here, to here. I might go different directions to try and encourage the ankle to be stable against the different things that it feels. Now these jumps are all quite close within a small, within a 1 foot radius there. It's not a big distance. Well, let's say you're a trail runner and you're running along and you end up having to go to step here. Well, you need to have balance to that. So we can, and that might be downhill, it might be uphill. So we could have, for example, where we've got to jump from 1 foot over a step. We could do where you jump from 1 foot and land it there. So that's a really nice way of starting to develop more of a functional balance sense that relates more to the sport that you do. Now, another example would be, you may have seen people within soccer and other sports where they'll put out an agility ladder and they'll do what we call karaoke. So if I'm standing back here, and I haven't got the agility ladder out right now, but if I'm here, I might kind of start to, and then I might start to come back, and as I get better, I start to make quicker changes to my directional moves. I might start to throw in other variations. Maybe I'm doing that. Let's say a basketball player, I'm doing that, and my coach or my friend is throwing me a ball, and I'm throwing it back as I move along using that ankle pattern. Now, sometimes things happen that are completely unpredictable. If I jump laterally onto a Bosu, I know that the first reaction is going to happen is my ankle's going to roll and I'm going to try and correct it. Well, it's predictable still. I know the direction of the forces, I can feel what's going to happen to the body. So I have an ACL patient I've been working with who he's actually had both ACLs done, came to see me, and there are issues with his balance, there are issues with his perception of where he's at, and he's not got this quick reaction time yet. So one of the drills that we actually did was where we'd stand in the middle of the room, I would have him jump up, and I would jump up and barge into him. Or I would stand, and as he jumped up, I'd randomly push him in a direction. And kind of fun rehab actually, but the goal was to help him to get a sense of unpredictable forces. He didn't know which way I was going to push him or shunt him, just like what would happen in the game. So we try as best as possible to mimic the sport that you do. It's not just about standing on a Bosu disc or standing on a wobble board, because they don't mimic real world situations. We might use them potentially in our rehab early on, but we want to move on to things that are more functional and recreate basically the sporting environment, the sporting situation that you play in. And if we do that, we start to reduce your risk of having a re-injury at the ankle. And we saw at the beginning how high those stats are. You really want to take ankle sprains seriously. It's not just, oh, I had a little ankle sprain over the weekend, I'm better, I'll run and just run through pain. We really want to take it seriously and make sure we don't have them, because if someone gets a more unstable ankle over time because they keep rolling it, there is risk at some point they roll it too far and they have a complete rupture of the ligaments, whereby maybe they need to have surgery to reconstruct the ligaments, or worse still, they might roll enough where they actually fracture the ankle, and then they're immobilized. Maybe worse still, they have to have surgery for that. So if we take the early ankle sprain seriously, we don't have the knock-on effects. And that's not obviously just for our fun and benefit and well-being, that's also for our back pocket, because it costs a lot of money to have to go for a rehab again and again, or to have to cancel events that you're doing again and again, or be out of work or have surgeries. So I think I'd really encourage you, if you have an ankle sprain, it's well worth seeing a PT and getting it evaluated and seeing, okay, what can I do better? And it may be that you're doing great things within your training and you just need some reassurance and maybe a couple of tweaks. Or it might be that your training really has some bigger holes in it and you need to have some tweaks, which probably won't only help, will help your balance and your likelihood of, and it will reduce your likelihood of having ankle sprains, but it may actually improve your overall performance as an athlete. And the same's true though, not just for athletes, but even just for regular, everyday people. If you're the person who likes to go for a walk around the neighbourhood, you need to have good balance so that when you do hit an uneven paving slab, that you don't roll your ankle again. So I would really encourage you, if you've got an ankle sprain, reach out to see a PT. It doesn't have to be 2 or 3 times a week therapy. A lot of this rehab can actually be done at home or at a gym, and you just need some good instruction early on to be able to help move forward. Now sometimes people do need some hands-on, more recurrent visits, but that's not every patient. Not every patient needs 2 to 3 times a week. It needs to be tailored to you. I'm going to switch back to this camera here. Alrighty, so let's angle this back down. There's a couple of people watching live right now. Do you have any questions? If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments right now, and I'm going to try and get the blog pasted into the comments. So if you get there, hey Katie, I see a wave from Katie, and I'll try and put the blog in there. So if you come later and you're like, okay, what's he talking about? There's more detail in the blog. There's actually quite a lot of specifics within little expandable boxes that go into even more detail.
this is basically based on the most recent research, like what is actually beneficial to my patients. This is what I read to help my patients do better. So if you have questions, feel free to add them in the comments right now. And if you are watching this afterwards, again, you can put them in the comments. You can send me an email at andrew.walker@physioworkshsv.com, or you can give me a phone call, 256-529-7395. You can send a Facebook message. Multiple ways of contacting me. And I don't have a secretary. I answer all my own messages. I answer all my own calls. There's no going through anyone to get to me. And I'm happy just to chat to you. So I don't know if there's any comments or questions right now. If there's not, that's perfectly fine. I think, unfortunately, I couldn't schedule this earlier when it would be more people's lunch hours. But if you're watching this after the fact, I appreciate you turning in and watching the replay. And honestly, feel free to ask questions. So I'm going to hold on for a couple more minutes, and we'll see what people do. If you're going to watch the replay, you get to see me hop around on different things and maybe make a fool of myself. But ankle rehab, very, very important. Have an unstable ankle, you're going to have more of a chance of getting other injuries from twists and turns when you're doing your sport. Like I said, the stats are crazy. Like I said, 46% of patients with sprains experience pain 1 to 4 years later. 34% experience recurrent sprains. 55% report feeling instability in the ankle. So that shows us how really people don't typically get the care that they need. So make sure you get the care. Make sure you see someone who will do a good job by you. There's lots of good physical therapists out there. Physical therapists are experts in movement, so I would highly encourage you, if you have an ankle sprain or you have a problem with a recurrently sprained ankle or instability, come and see a physical therapist, and hopefully you'll save yourself some money in the long run and potentially save yourself from surgeries. So we don't want surgeries. That's no fun. And it's like a piece of canvas, a bit of paper. You start painting black, you can't get rid of it. You start doing surgery, you can't go back and undo that surgery. So I would really highly recommend you trying to rehab an ankle really well and see where that takes you first. So anyone have any questions? Alrighty. Well, I am going to sign off, and like I say, if you have questions, please comment afterwards or drop me a message. You all have a good day.